So we are live, and I think I'll keep this one up on the channel if I have that option, because typically I do these lives on Instagram. Turn that down while I'm talking here. But today I'm roasting coffee and I need a bunch of it. So I just did 9 bags of Colombia Don Enrique. Stopped my Instagram live, and we are now on YouTube. So YouTube, you get to see me roast some Ethiopia Kambata. And I know you guys have been wanting, like, how do I profile? How do I actually dial in a profile on the Aillio Bullet? That's coming, but it's gonna take me time because I am still learning. I have a new fan setup, and that's something that I have to adjust to before I develop actual profiles, repeatable profiles. But it is coming, I promise. Do I sell? Oh, my chat. Where'd my chat go? Live chat. There it is. Do I sell online? No, I can't. I am under Michigan cottage law. That's how I operate as a business. And cottage food law in Michigan prohibits selling online. So I cannot ship my coffee as part of a transaction. But for those that ask, at least starting out, why does my chat keep disappearing? If you want to DM me, like on Instagram, or email me at davidsargentcoffee@gmail.com, just hit me up and give me your name and address, and if you have a preference, and maybe I'll send you a bag of coffee. I should have some extras here. And I'm sure we can figure something out. I'm just putting it out into the ether, into the space that I cannot sell my coffee. So, you know, we'll figure it out. Let me get you some coffee. Okay, got my labels ready. That's what I was doing right here. Labels ready. This is Ethiopia Kambata, very blueberry heavy. The roaster is charged, so we are at 250 degrees, and I am going to get this Ethiopia coffee in it right now. Let's do it. All right. Got my green coffee right here. Charge. There we go. Oh, gotta turn my fan off.
Roasting has started.
Fan goes back on. Cap it off. Power level at, we're gonna go power level 8, fan speed 2. That sounds good to me. All right. I would love for my chat to not disappear. I wonder if that's an option. Let's see. I don't have any options. Aha! Wonderful. Love it, YouTube. Oh well. Okay. Oh, cool thing too. I get to debut on YouTube anyway. So I just ran out. I just ran out of these labels, but that's okay. I'll show you. I have a brand new set of labels that I'm kind of excited about. Hold on, bud. From an efficiency standpoint, this is really cool, and I'll show you why. So I really like these labels, but they're expensive. They're like 4.5 by 6.5. And to buy a pack of 100 sheets of these with 2 labels on each sheet was almost $90 after shipping. And from an efficiency standpoint for labels, that's kind of ridiculous. I don't need it to be that large. So I was able to cut some things down. And I have now these new sheets that are 4 up. They're a little bit cleaner. So you'll notice that the background isn't like darker. I don't have the geography on there, which was cool. I like it, but when I went smaller, it added a little bit more complexity to the design than I really liked. So we cut that out entirely. It's clean. Here, I'll show it closer. And the only thing that's different here is I cut out the varietal. So bourbon, Caturra, Typica, Cachuai, all these things. Nobody cared about the varietal. I'd get a few questions here and there. But as far as like keeping track of it, nobody really cared at all. Do you have any Bourbon coffee today? That's not a question I've ever gotten. And then I also added my YouTube handle. So I've got Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube is now on my actual labels. getting this out into the world. That's what I am really excited about. Yeah, just a smaller and cleaner look. It's going to cost me a lot less. And then I still get them printed locally, which is cool. So I'm still supporting local, but it's just going to cost me less. I'm very excited about that. Going on the same bags, so let's do one now. So still 8-ounce bags. We've got one sheet here I was already using. Get one of these off. And they work well. I think they're a little less sticky than the other bags, but it didn't give me an issue in my testing. So we place it up high. There it is on the bag. I think it's very clean. I still like it. Still fits in the theme. And we'll write on it, get the information down. So roast date 2/27. And we have Ethiopia Kambata in their bullet right now, so that's what I'm writing right here. And what was this? This is a 2100 meter. We've got a natural process. And this is our blueberry bomb here, heavy blueberry. With a nice milk chocolate base to it. Very, very, very tasty. All right. So that's that. And there it is. I think it's quite nice. Cleaner, more cost effective. From a business standpoint, just made sense for me. So, look forward to these saving me a lot more money than what this was doing. Exciting. So, as far as the roast goes, on the bullet, we've got the new AC Infinity Cloudline T4. The T4 has a whole lot more power. It says double the CFM, so double the actual volume of air being moved over the same span of time. But it makes a much better seal on the bullet, and especially now that I've got the new adapter on it. So check this out. I had this adapter that melted. You can see just how, like, this should be a rectangle kind of, and that's totally like oval shaped. It is just, I mean, that should be a circle. Totally warped. Yeah, so I had to get a new one because I was using the Raxial S4 before, and that's more of a booster than a real fan. Technically, it had a fan inside, but it was only moving 100 CFM, which was not very strong. Plus, it not being very strong melted, left too much heat around here and melted this. So then it just got worse and worse over time. So I got the Cloudline T4 hooked up with the AC Infinity exhaust tube. Very nice quality tube. It's insulated, double insulated, so easier to handle. I got the new adapter on. I think the guy's name is on Etsy, McMaster 3D. If you type in Aillio Bullet exhaust adapter, he's basically the only one 3D printing these adapters up. And it's updated from this. This is about half the height, and then it has an extra like lip on over the edge to kind of catch the bullet to keep it in place a little better, which is good. He's making improvements on the design. I like to see that. With the new fan, that one shouldn't melt. And then additionally, the roast is going to be better for it. So we're at 173 degrees here. That's internal bean temperature with the infrared sensor. We're watching the ROR. We're bouncing between 8 and 9, which is totally okay. I want to go a little low and slow with this Ethiopia Kambata because it's a natural process and we have to be a little more delicate to keep the consistency better. But anyway, with the new fan, that's going to help me with that consistency, pulling out the heat and the extra chaff and the oil and the dust. at a better rate, a more controlled rate, is going to help me keep the actual beans themselves roasted more consistently. And that's what I've seen so far. I've done probably like 6 or 7 pounds now. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like probably like 10, maybe 12 roast batches so far. And it's gone well, very well. So I'm very happy. You can see I also got a new rolling cart here. That's awesome. I had this table that I kind of retrofitted from some scraps to hold the roaster, but it had no other function than that. It was also very risky because it wasn't on wheels. I was like sliding it around, and it was very tippable. Not something you want your $3,500 machine sitting on. So now I've got this nice steel rolling cart. It's got some trays underneath. It's got the extra little tray on the top. Some locking casters, so it's not going anywhere. Highly recommend. I spent like $140 on it. It wasn't very difficult to put together. Happy with it. I definitely recommend making sure you're roasting on a solid platform. And in my case, it helps that it's mobile. So when I'm done roasting, pack everything up. It all fits right there. Yeah, locking casters, big deal. It all fits right there. I don't have to take the fan off and put it in some other location. It can all sit kind of contained, which is really great. And in the summer, I could even roll it out to my deck if I wanted to. So that's a big deal for me. Nice height. Yeah, it is a nice height. I'm no longer kind of bending over to get to checking out the beans, which is great. I am bending over because I have beans down below, green beans, but that's fine. So if you're looking at an Aillio Bullet, you got to be thinking about these things where you're roasting. If you're like in a garage or you have a shop and you've got a nice platform that's like a workbench that's not going anywhere, and you're just plopping the roaster down, awesome. But for me, I'm in my kitchen and I need mobility. I need to go from the window when I'm done, packed away. It's got to be able to roll away kind of under my bar here on the other side of the kitchen so it's out of the way. Big deal for me, super excited about it. And yeah, it's a little higher, so it's easier to get to. So we're at 196 degrees. We should be hearing first crack any second. ROR still about 9. 10, 11, we're increasing. There's first crack. And you do tend to see ROR increase faster as you get into first crack. So I'm going to come over here and monitor this a little more closely because we don't want to get too high at all. Alright, so I'm thinking I'll be dropping this probably like 208, 210. Gotta let first crack do its job though. I have pulled this off right at first crack, getting it at about like 13% weight loss. 13% is not problematic, but it is lighter than I think I like for the Ethiopian Kambata. We've been experimenting with this one for a long time. We're at 206 now, so I can't talk for too long. But I do find 14% weight loss to be kind of the sweet spot for this. You retain that kind of milk chocolate base. 13% very blueberry, but it kind of loses a little bit of support from the milk chocolate kind of secondary profile there. All right, we're at 208. First crack is kind of lingering, 209. Beans look pretty good. I'm going to hold it for another couple of degrees. We're at 210. I think I'm going to drop it like 212. 211. All right, we are at 212. Here we go. We're at 12 minutes exactly. Looking pretty good. Now, naturals can be tricky. They tend to have a higher probability of looking a little less consistent. but that isn't to say that the roast that they're roast defects. The natural process just happens to produce coffee beans this way, so it can look a little inconsistent. And for sure, there's the possibility of Quakers and defects, but you're going to have a higher chance, a higher likelihood of viewing your final roast looking more inconsistent than you would hope. But it's not problematic once you actually get to tasting it. Of course, preference is always going to matter, so you can pick out the beans as needed if some are just looking a little lighter than you want them to. But if you're running a business like I am, you've got to be a little efficient about things, and just knowing that some are a little lighter than others, it's not really a roast issue. That's just the characteristics of natural processed coffee sometimes. All right, we're going to take a look here. I usually do these roast streams on Instagram, but I think I'll start doing it this way where I start one and go to the other, because I don't have two phones and I don't want to set up my laptop to do both for just me roasting. But here's the roast. I like to show this after the fact, after just about every roast. So I'm aiming for like a 14% weight loss. We took it off right at the tail end of first crack, so I'm thinking that we'll get there. So let's check the weight. 685 grams. I have a feeling that we're right around 14%. Yeah, 14.4%. Very happy with that. That is a roast level that I've consumed a lot of. I love it a lot. It's great for espresso. I've used it personally by itself with espresso, but I do tend to blend when I do get around to playing with espresso. But it's great on its own. It's very tasty overall. I haven't made a drink with it where I just was very displeased. This is the one that needs a lot of time, though. This is the coffee that, for whatever reason, needs 2 to 3 weeks instead of like 5 days, 7 days. It just takes a lot longer to degas, and I haven't found a coffee that acted like it yet. I'm sure they're out there, but I've roasted a lot of coffee now for the last year and a half, and this is one that just doesn't like to degas before like 2 weeks. It's kind of strange, but I love it. It's an awesome coffee. What's up, bud? Okay, go sit down. I'll get you a snack in a second. All right, we are going to parse these out into my 8-ounce bags here. I've got my bags ready. These ones here. And then once these are ready, we'll do another batch, and that'll have our new labels on it. Exciting. Oh, gotta open it up with the trusty old wine bottle. I like using the wine bottle here to open it up so I don't have to stick my hands inside. There we go. So feel free in the comments, if you're watching this live here, ask any questions. This is kind of an AMA open about either roasting, brewing, or business. If you've got any questions at all, I'm open today. Alright. So I'll get back to you in just a second after I get these sorted out into the 8-ounce bags. I'm going to go ahead and call that a light. By color, it looks fairly light. Even though it's a 14.4, I've had 14s that looked a little darker. But by color, it looked fairly light overall. So we're going to go light roast. And it's great regardless. Like I said, 13%. I just got done doing some tasting of. Really great. I mean, explosive. Blueberry. Kind of crazy. All right. Do you have a PC connected to the Bullet? How do you know the ROR? Yes. So I have a laptop set next to it, just out of frame there. You do not need to use the software, but it is really helpful. And when I say you don't need to use the software, the Bullet has an LCD display. LCD display is redundant. Has an LCD that tells you ROR because it tracks that on its own as well. I believe that if you are not plugged in, that it can calculate ROR because it's getting its temperature probe is there. The hardware is there. So I imagine it doesn't need to relay anything to the software before the software spits it back out onto the display. I don't think it works that way. I think you can unplug, and then it should read out ROR without an issue. The software is supplemental, mostly for tracking profile development and getting profiles from online. It's really helpful, no doubt. I use it every time, but you don't need it. It is free though, so you might as well use it, right? All right, so we're preheated. Preheating at 250. I think I might try to turn that down a little bit on the next roast. I want to see if I can get a little more consistency, even though it's a natural and I know that it might not look super consistent. But I might charge at a slightly lower temperature and see if I can take it a little lower, a little slower, and get to where I need to be. Maybe it takes another minute or so, but it's a great coffee regardless. To lower acidity, do you lower your ROR targets and then lengthen brown? That's yeah. I mean, you were touching it right there. Even though I was talking about consistency, I do believe that you would overall lower your acidity as well, because you're not going to have some that are a little darker, some that are a little lighter. Consistency is key, it's king, it's everything, right? So what is perceived as acidic or bitter or sour, if you can pull that consistency in and get a nice shade, a consistent color across the board, I think you're going to find your perception of acidic, bitter, and sour to be a little less, a little toned down. You're going to find it's going to be smoother. So I think if that answers your question, I do think the acidity will kind of be tamed a little bit if you can bring those things together a little bit. So ROR, I don't know necessarily about ROR coming down, but for me, I'm thinking more about charge temp for these lighter roasts, these roasts that I intend to be lighter. Ethiopian naturals, honey processes maybe, some stuff that you just want to try lighter for their fruitier natures. It's where the acidity kind of shines when you want it to be light roast, but consistency is the key to controlling that. And how acidity is perceived can be different. So when you're talking about this Ethiopian Kambata, where it's so blueberry, it can be acidic in complex acidities that allow you to perceive blueberry as a flavor, as a taste note. But you don't want it inconsistent so that you're tasting bitter notes of chocolate, like a dark roast might have of this coffee, alongside the blueberry, because if it's overly bitter, you're going to get complicated perceptions. And you might think, yeah, this blueberry coffee tastes acidic. It would be perceived as smoother if it was a little more consistent. I know that was a little long-winded. We are at 254 degrees. It's going to hover around there, so I should get this coffee in. All right. Okie dokie. Looking for 800 grams. There we go. And we are going to charge. We are preheated. Hold on, bud. I will be with you in just a second, okay?
Charge.
Here we go. Turn that around. Oh, gotta turn my fan off. I keep forgetting. That's a process I cannot forget. During my last Instagram live a couple days ago, I got this new fan. With the fan speed up only 30 or 40%. Hold on. Alright. So it was kind of funny. Definitely a learning thing. I got this new fan, the Cloudline T4 by AC Infinity, and it's awesome. But it creates a much better seal, a much better vacuum for kind of a more consistent exhaust system. But it was so strong, I was testing it out at different power levels because I'm learning, and I had it at 100% power once, and I was charging the beans, and as they were shooting down, the fan was pulling them out from the exhaust chute, actually pulling my green beans away from the drum, so like defying gravity, sucking them back up and out. It was funny, but also problematic because I was trying to roast coffee, so I had to quickly shut it down, scoop those beans out, and turn it back on because it was fine to continue, but definitely a learning process. AC Infinity Cloudline T4, great fan, but between roasts, turn the fan off so that when you charge the next batch, it's not going to pull green beans through the exhaust chute. Now I know. Okay, so on the previous one, I believe I was at power 8 or power 9, I can't remember, but we're going to start at power 7 today with this batch here with Ethiopian Bada. This is my second batch, and what I want to do is a little lower and a little slower. So ROR bouncing between 7, 8, and 9 would be ideal. I was bouncing between 9 and 10. I don't want to stay at 7. If I can get it like 8.5, that would be like really, really ideal for this experiment. I'm not saying this is the way it should be roasted, but I want to try it out. And if we can get to first crack like a minute later and see if we can pull the consistency a little tighter, I'd be really, really happy. So we have power 7, fan speed 3. We have 40% on the exhaust power for the Cloudline T4 per minute. Yeah, I believe it is. So we're at, well, ROR for the first like minute or so is kind of crazy, but yes, I believe this system, and I do think you can change it in the software too. And that is one of the important things about the software is some things you can change about the roaster. Firmware updates, for example, but also Celsius, Fahrenheit, and how ROR is calculated. I believe it does allow you to go to 30-second intervals. I've kept it on 60-second intervals. It's what I'm comfortable with. And that's fine for me. Yep, just a second. There you go, bud. Here. Sit down. All right. Excuse that. Once in a while, I have to make sure my kid is still breathing and eating and acting normal. Okay. We're doing okay. Let me input my information here. 800 grams. And we're just about ready to normalize. Hello, what's going on? Just roasting coffee today. We're starting to normalize. So we're past turnaround. Our temperature is rising and our ROR is just about to meet. And this is the point where you can start to kind of monitor ROR and make sure it's not too high or too low. Before this point, there's not a whole lot of point unless it's crazy to try and make any adjustments at all. So we're at 10. I think it's going to normalize around 9, which is great. That's what I want. Currently bouncing between 8 and 9. And for you, it might be a little different depending on your exhaust setup. But for me, I only live about like a mile or two from Lake Michigan, so I have these winds where that side of my house is facing, that's where the wind comes from off of Lake Michigan. So my ROR might actually be affected by the gusts of wind that hit my house. If you're in a scenario where you can be cognizant of that when you place your system, how you exhaust your roaster might it's just one of those things you got to think about. So like the direction of the wind, I think, does impact the ROR readings. Weirdly enough, it's crazy, but I believe that. All right, and we have given you our low and slow. What would cause you to worry about baking a negative ROR during development? A negative ROR during development would be bad. Yeah, very, very bad. Negative ROR would mean that your temperature is actually going down. You never want that. Baking, yeah, I guess that's to say, like on my old roaster, not the Gene Cafe, but like the Cafe Maisie spinning roaster. I mean, basically that's a pan, and you bake the coffee on it. It just happens to spin it while it's working its magic. It's just literally a hot pan. And the ROR would have been insanely low. Like, I would have to imagine like 4 or 5 at all times, because my roast would take about 30 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. So if that translates, what that does is basically bakes the beans. You're not getting like explosive flavors. You're not able to really make any identifiers on that kind of coffee roaster. It's basically like, if you like acidic, earthy, dark coffees, you can make that happen. Trying to get a light roast, it was either underdeveloped, planty, and grassy, or like there was no in between almost. There was no way to really make it super consistent and nice. So that's what I would consider kind of baking your coffee in that kind of sense. We use that terminology sometimes. I think that does apply when your ROR is really, really low. Negative would be like, for whatever reason, your temperature's going down. That's not good. But like 4 or 5, I think is probably along those lines, baking your coffee, if that makes sense. So right now we're at 6.5. It's a little low. So I'm going to turn down my fan speed instead of pulling up my power. Fan speed is kind of like a more minute adjustment. It does have an impact on your actual temperature. So I feel like I've pulled up power to, like, let's say from power 7 to power 8, and temperatures, the ROR has gone up, let's say from 6 to 8. I feel like if you went fan speed 3 to 2, sometimes I've noticed ROR might go up like half as much. So it's like a micro adjustment, if you can think about it that way. There's other reasons why you'd want your fan speed higher or lower, but if you want to think about it in terms of how it can affect your temperatures as well, that can be like a micro adjustment. Something to think about. So we'll go fan speed 2 and see if we can make note of that. We're at 175 degrees. Almost, we're 8:55, almost 9 minutes in. So we're not going to see first crack here for a little while. So we're definitely lower and slower. And we are at ROR of 7.5. Yeah, about 7.5. So we went from 6, 6.5 to 7.5. Kind of bouncing between 6.5 and 7.5. So there you have it. There's a little like a micro adjustment. If you don't want to pull your power up, but you want to make a smaller impact on your ROR. But I don't want to see it bouncing between 6.5 and 7. I want it more close to 8. So I'm going to pull fan speed down to 1 now, where I probably could have done power 8 in the first place, but we're just checking things out. We're experimenting. I'm learning. This is my first time with the Cloudline T4 hooked up to the adapter, so it's got a better seal than it did the last time I roasted. So this is all still a learning process for me, and it will be for a while. But I'm happy to share that process with you guys, especially if you're on bullets or looking at bullets. What an awesome roaster it is, but you got to be on top of it to try and understand what's happening here. So now we're at bouncing between 8 and 9.5. So that's great. That's really where I wanted it from the first place. We're at 10:30. Hovering around 9. It's coming along. Had I stayed between 8 and 9 from the get-go, we would have probably been at first crack by now. I'm not concerned about what the taste profile is going to be too much. I do think it's still going to be a great coffee as we learn this process. I've certainly had worse roast processes before. But I probably went a little too low and slow here. So next time we'll do power 8, fan speed 1, and see how that goes. Alright. My chat keeps disappearing. Never roasted coffee before, but bought 5 pounds of green that's coming Wednesday. Gonna try it on a popcorn maker. Oh, don't disappear, chat. Definitely think I'm gonna get obsessed with tinkering and go for a bullet after a bit. So here's the cool thing. You don't need to go for a bullet immediately. There's other roasters you can step into. Alright, we're at 198 degrees. Give me just a second and I'll explain more. It is a rabbit hole. It's very fun and it's very rewarding. You're gonna love it, but you need to be patient with it. Alright, we're at 200 degrees. So we're getting into first crack. We're noticing the ROR come up a bit again. That's okay. Let it happen, because once you come back out of first crack, ROR should stabilize back down a little bit. Unless your ROR jumps way too high and your temperature gets away from you. But right now we're hovering between 9 and 10, and that's super okay. Alright, so if I remember right, we dropped at 212 last time. 1 second, buddy, okay? Alright. Oops, not that one. Hold on, go that way. So we dropped, 212 last time. So I'm going to probably drop at like 210, 211. And we're at 206 right now. ROR about 8. Things are looking pretty good. It's spitting out a little bit of chaff, so I'm going to pull the fan speed up. And over the course of the next 2 or 3 degrees, we'll drop it. Now when you pull that fan speed up quite a bit, you're going to notice the ROR drop. And that's okay when you're at the very tail end of the roast if you need to pull some chaff out. If you don't mind shaking it out after the roast, that's totally fine too. So we're at ROR of 6.5 now. Because I pulled the fan speed up to 4, we're at 211, and we are going to dump it. we were at the tail end of first crack there for those of you who couldn't hear it. And this is absolutely more consistent. I'm very happy with this, actually. So that's great. I'm learning and I'm observing that a little low and slow with an Ethiopian natural that's delicate, that you want a little lighter, is a good thing. I'm sure the taste will be great, but always taste is king. So when you're experimenting, taste as you go to understand the final result of your experimentations. Now I can talk until I'm blue about consistency, but ultimately taste is king. One of the things to always keep in mind is these naturals can have a tendency to look a little bit inconsistent, and that's okay. But it is, by and large, more consistent than the previous roast. It looks great. We're going to check the weight now. All right, 691.7, so almost 692. That's definitely a little bit lighter. Hold on, bud. And the software can help you calculate your percentage. Yep, 13.5%. That's really, really nice. That's actually super ideal for this coffee. What beans are you using right now? Ethiopia Kembata. Kembata is the region. It is a blueberry bomb. It is super blueberry heavy with a nice milk chocolate kind of support structure, secondary to the blueberry in the taste profile. It's wonderful. 2,100 meters, natural process, everything you'd hope out of a nice fruity Ethiopia. It's not complex. It's pretty singularly blueberry, milk chocolate. It's awesome. But I think that's going to do it for me for the stream today. I have Peru decaf to do, but I gotta do a couple other things. So thanks for joining me today. I will do more of these. I think I love sharing the process. If you've got more questions, feel free to find me on Instagram, DM me. I'm at _David Sargent Coffee, or email me at davidsargentcoffee@gmail.com, and we can talk some more. Thanks for being here and chatting with me, guys. Till next time.